Imagine getting, like, the biggest promotion of your career, a massive bump in your salary.
Oh, that is the dream, right?
Exactly. But then you look at your bank account a year later, and you realize you actually have less purchasing power than you did before.
Which is an incredibly frustrating feeling.
It really is. Or consider this. A politician promises to punish a foreign country by slapping this massive tax on their exports. But the only person who actually ends up paying that tax is you, just standing at the checkout counter of your local store.
Yeah, it feels like a total paradox. But I mean, that is literally just the mechanics of the global economy at work.
Right. And that is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome, everyone. You are tuning into the Biz English Channel. We are a YouTube channel podcast where we decode the hidden architecture of the business world.
And honestly, the language of economics often feels designed to keep people out. It sounds so dense. It's so dense. But if you want to understand the invisible forces determining your salary, your rent, and, your grocery bill, hit that subscribe button right now. Smash the like button, and please share your opinions in the comment section below as we go along.
Because the vocabulary we are unpacking today, it's simply the operating system of our daily lives.
Yeah, we are stripping away the jargon. The mission today is to equip you, the listener, with the exact terms you need to navigate the news, your workplace, and your own money with total confidence. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Before we figure out how the economy is directly targeting our wallets, we have to look at the diagnostic tools, right? We need to understand how experts take the economy's vital signs.
Right, to see if the patient is thriving or on life support. And the primary vital sign you will hear constantly is GDP, gross domestic product.
Which people always treat as this ultimate scoreboard.
They do.
Right.
But just calling it the total value of everything produced and sold in a year, that doesn't really explain how it functions. No, it doesn't. You have to break it down. I like to think of GDP as an engine with 4 distinct pistons. And they all have to fire in this delicate balance.
Exactly. And the biggest piston is consumer spending. That's just you and me buying laptops, paying for haircuts, grabbing takeout.
Right. And if we get nervous about the future and stop spending, that piston just misfires. So to keep the engine from stalling out, the second piston has to fire, which is business investment.
Yeah, companies building new facilities or buying new equipment.
But, if consumers aren't buying things, businesses usually stop investing too.
Which is terrifying for the economy. That is when the third piston has to kick in, government spending.
Like schools and roads.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The government might suddenly pour billions into building a new highway, specifically to inject cash into the system. And then the fourth piston, net exports.
Well, we sell abroad minus what we buy.
Right. That rounds out the formula. But there is a fascinating flaw here in how we measure success with GDP.
Oh, yeah. Like if a massive hurricane destroys the city.
Exactly. The government and local businesses have to spend billions to rebuild. All that construction causes the GDP to completely spike.
So the economy looks like it is booming on paper. But in reality, no new wealth was created. We just spent billions getting back to zero.
It is a critical insight. GDP measures activity, not prosperity. And speaking of measuring prosperity, we have to talk about inflation.
Right. We always hear inflation defined just as prices rising, like a $3 cup of coffee jumping up to $3.50.
Yeah, which is true. But framing it just as things getting more expensive completely misses the psychological impact.
It really does. Because inflation is essentially this silent, unvoted upon tax on your cash. It affects your savings, your wages, even the interest rates at your bank.
Because it changes the geometry of wealth. If you just hold on to cash, your savings are actively evaporating. It forces you out onto the risk spectrum.
Another metric that gets totally misunderstood is the unemployment rate.
Oh, absolutely.
I used to assume it was just a simple percentage of people who don't have a job. But the actual calculation is so much darker. It only counts people who actively want to work and can't find jobs.
Which creates a bizarre statistical illusion. Imagine a factory town where the plant shuts down, 1,000 people lose their jobs, and the unemployment rate spikes.
Right.
But if a year goes by and half those people get so discouraged they completely give up looking, they are mathematically removed from the calculation.
Wait, so the unemployment rate actually goes down?
Yes, making the economy look healthier simply because people surrendered to despair.
That is wild.
Yeah.
But driving all of these changes, the coffee prices, the factory jobs, is the foundational mechanism of supply and demand.
The invisible hand. And the best way to visualize this is the umbrella analogy.
Oh, I love this one. Walk us through it.
Think about being out on a rainy day. Suddenly, demand for umbrellas is incredibly high, but the supply at the corner store is low.
So the store owner raises the price.
Exactly, but on a sunny day, demand drops to zero. The store has a huge supply, so the prices fall to clear out the inventory.
That makes so much sense. So synthesizing these vital signs, is GDP just stepping on the scale to see the overall weight of the economy, while inflation is checking the economy's blood pressure?
That is the perfect mental model. The scale tells you if you're growing, but the blood pressure tells you if that growth is going to cause a heart attack.
Right.
And once you understand those vital signs, you can start describing the roller coaster of economic movements.
And we really need to know how to talk about these wild day-to-day changes. Like you see words like spike and dip, confluence.
That's the time. A spike is a sudden, sharp price increase, like gas prices jumping overnight.
And the dip is the opposite, a temporary fall, like stock values dropping briefly before bouncing back.
Yeah, but those are just the surface waves. We have to look at the boom and bust cycle. The best way to understand this is using the seasons analogy.
Okay, so like spring and winter.
Exactly. Spring is the boom cycle. Borrowing is easy, optimism is high, businesses are growing, they're creating jobs, and consumer spending is huge.
Everyone feels great.
Right. But eventually, reality sets in. Things slow down. And that brings us to winter, which is the bust. Jobs start to dry up. Spending drops.
And when that winter lasts a really long time, that is a recession.
Yes. The economy measurably shrinks. Stores reduce their hours. Hiring completely pauses.
But even in a recession, the impact isn't always uniform, right? You might experience an offset.
Oh, offsets are crucial.
Like let's say your rent goes up by $200. That hurts. But if you navigate a raise at work that adds $200 to your paycheck, that new income completely offsets the new cost.
Your personal reality stays neutral, even if the broader economy is struggling.
Which is exactly why we want to hear from you right now. I want you to pause the video and comment below. Have you noticed a spike in the price of any everyday item recently? Or has a recent win at work offset your living costs? Let us know in the comments.
And while you're doing that, if you are enjoying this clear breakdown of economic terms, make sure you hit subscribe.
Definitely. So what do you think is the biggest takeaway here?
Well, what's fascinating here is how these macro cycles, the booms and busts, completely dictate our micro decisions at the local shopping center.
Yeah, and speaking of wages offsetting our living costs, let's zoom in on the specific arena where we earn our money, the job market.
The labor market is just a marketplace, but for jobs instead of products.
Right, and you constantly hear about a tight labor market, which basically means there are more job openings than there are qualified workers to fill them.
The workers have the leverage, and that leads to wage growth, your pay increasing over time.
But we have to do the math on this. Let's say you go from earning $2,000 monthly to $2,100 monthly.
That is a 5% wage growth.
Right, you feel like you're winning. But you have to compare that to inflation, right? If inflation is at 7%, you are actually falling behind.
Exactly. And that ties directly into the cost of living, the money you literally need just for basic expenses in a specific area.
Which varies wildly. Living in a major city versus a rural town.
Oh, completely. But the structure of how we work is shifting, too, away from traditional employers toward the gig economy.
Yeah, freelance, flexible work, driving for Uber or Lyft, or doing project consulting. People call it freedom.
It definitely offers flexibility.
But I'm going to push back on that. In a tight labor market, where workers have the advantage, does the gig economy actually give workers more freedom? Or does it just strip away the traditional benefits that normally come with that leverage?
That is the big debate.
I mean, you don't get health insurance or paid time off.
It is a massive transfer of risk onto the individual. Now, it's easy to feel like the labor market and living costs just shift randomly, but there are massive institutions pulling the levers behind the scenes.
The puppet masters, the central bank.
Yes, they are the manager of the country's entire money system. They control what we call the key rate or policy rate.
Okay, let's break down the math on interest rates because this affects everything.
Go for it.
If you borrow $1,000 at 5% interest, you have to pay the bank $50 in interest.
Right.
But if the bank drops rates and you save $1,000 at 2%, the bank pays you $20.
Exactly. It dictates whether you should borrow or save. But central banks aren't the only ones pulling levers. We also have tariffs.
Oh, tariffs. Extra costs added to imported goods.
Let's walk through an example. Say a phone is made in country A, and it is priced at $300.
Okay.
Then country B, where we live, slaps a 10% tariff on it. So that is an extra $30.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Politicians always talk about tariffs as punishing the foreign country. But country A doesn't pay that $30.
Not a dime.
The importing company in our country pays it at the border, and then they pass that $30 fee directly onto the everyday consumer at the cash register.
We pay for the geopolitical maneuvering.
Exactly. It's a hidden tax on us. And speaking of everyday consumers footing the bill, governments have their own massive bills to pay.
They really do. And when the system gets mismanaged, crisis hits.
We have to separate two things here: the federal deficit versus the national debt.
People mix these up all the time. The deficit is just a one-year shortfall.
Right. Like if the government takes in $3 trillion in taxes this year, but they spend $4 trillion on schools and military.
Then they have created a $1 trillion deficit for that year.
But the national debt is the total accumulated amount owed over time to lenders. It's like a giant national credit card bill.
And when that debt becomes unsustainable, you get a financial crisis.
Severe systemic problems. Strict bank lending, stock market crashes, mass layoffs.
It is an economic heart attack. And the medicine for that sick economy is an economic stimulus.
Right. Tax cuts, government construction projects, direct cash support to get things moving again.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, there is a huge tension here. A government is often running a massive deficit while simultaneously trying to inject economic stimulus.
So they are essentially borrowing money to pay for the cure.
Precisely. Which is why your personal financial strategy is so critical. You have to understand the difference between your savings and your investments.
Yeah. Savings are for emergencies, future use. But investments, like stocks or property, those carry risk, but they are meant to actually grow your wealth over time.
You cannot just save your way out of inflation.
No, you really can't. Well, we have covered so much ground today, from the core measurements of GDP and inflation to the roller coaster of the boom and bust cycle.
And the reality of the gig economy and tariffs.
The overarching mission here is simple. You do not need to be an economist to understand the news or your paycheck. You just need to learn the language.
Once you know the vocabulary, it all makes sense.
Absolutely. So, a final reminder. Please subscribe to the Biz English channel, hit that like button, and drop your lingering questions in the comments. We want to know what you want us to decode next.
It's been great talking through all this.
Yeah, before we go, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought. If inflation is constantly altering the actual value of our money, and the gig economy is completely redefining what a job even is, are traditional measurements like GDP still giving us an accurate picture of human prosperity? Or is it time for a new economic vocabulary entirely? Keep thinking on that, and we'll see you in the next video.